Hello, students. Today we are going to be starting a new unit. So we just finished up our unit on surface area and volume of 3D shapes, three-dimensional shapes. And today we're starting chapter 9, which has to do with statistical measures. Our lesson today is 9.1, and that is going to be the introduction to statistics. So today, just some basic vocabulary. Statistics is the science of collecting and organizing data. So collecting different data on different topics and how you organize it and visually represent it with charts and graphs. And a statistical question is a question where we can expect a variety of answers. A dot plot or a line plot shows how many of each number, and we'll get into a little bit more depth of what it looks like, how we make dot plots. And a survey is a set of questions that we can use to collect answers or data. Now, here we go. Statistical questions. An example might be, what is your favorite color? This could have a variety of answers. You could say blue, you could say red, purple, and you would be able to collect data on that. Then another question might be, how many pairs of shoes do you own? Another question could be, how many meals a day do you eat, or how many miles do you travel in a day? A non-example would be a question that has a specific answer. So for example, how many states are in the United States? That has a specific answer. It's 50. Or what is 6 plus 10? That has a specific answer. It would be 16. So what I really want you to get from this is thinking about examples of statistical questions would be an open-ended question that could have multiple answers. So here we're going to look at a dot plot. So a dot plot is a line with a bunch of different numbers underneath, and then each dot represents a time that you have gotten that number. So for example, if you took a survey and you asked people how many miles a day they biked, and your answers varied from 18 to 28, 2 dots would mean that 2 people answered 18. 3 dots would mean that 3 people in your survey would answer 19. So if I counted all of these dots, it would tell me how many total answers I received from my survey. A peak, a cluster, is a group that's a small range where most of the values are. So if you look at our dot plot here, dot plot and line plot mean the same thing. They're interchangeable. If you looked at our dot plot here, we would notice that most of our data is concentrated on this one area right here. A peak is where there are a lot of values in one spot. So you can look here and you can see that out of our highest value is at 20. So this is the most concentrated area where we have the most answers is 20. And gaps tell us that there are no values in that spot. So right here, we don't have from 24 to 26, we have a gap. There are no answers from 24 to 26. So now we are going to practice. That should say example 1. I don't know why it says that. So it says Harry Styles is an ornithologist, which is a bird watcher. He records the number of bird photos that have been published in the local newspaper. So each value here represents a different value that was published. So 4 could be for the New York Times. He published 4 photos. For the LA Tribune, he published 6. For People Magazine, he published 3. For National Geographic, he published 6. For the Charlotte Observer, he published 5. And for Time Magazine, he published 5. So these are all different values, and each one represents a different magazine that he published. And so this would be number of, not times, but magazines published. Number of magazines, photos published. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a frequency table. So number of photos published. So whenever he published 3 photos, let's see how many times we have 3. We only have 1 3 here. So I would only write 1 because it's only been published. 3 photos have only been published in 1 magazine. Okay. So actually this would be number of magazines, photos published in So now I have 4. I'm going to see how many different magazines he published 4 photos in. I only see 1. Okay. Now I have 5. I see he published 2 different. So remember, he published in the Time magazine and he published in the Charlotte Observer 5. So he published in 2 different magazines with 5 photos. And last but not least, 6. We have 2 6s. So he published 2. He published 6 photos in 2 different magazines. Okay, now it asks us to use this data to create a dot plot where each dot represents a local newspaper. So now I can use this information and I'm going to put it in a dot plot. So I'm going to get my writing tool here, actually. No, too many technological advances. Okay, so I'm looking at my 3. He only published 1 set of 3 photos in 1 magazine. So I'm going to put a little dot above the 3. And then I look at my 4. I only have 1 magazine where he published 4 photos. But if I look 5, he published 2 different photos in 5 and 2 different photos in 6. And in real life, your dots would be more dot looking than Miss Nelson's, but this is just what it is. So now that we have this information, we can begin to ask ourselves questions about the data. So for example, a question that I might ask about the data is what was the most frequent number of photos published? And I could say both 5 and 6 were the most frequent photos that were published. I could also ask myself, what is the range of this data? So what is the minimum amount of photos he published and the maximum? And I could say my range was from 3 to 5. My data ranged, or from 3 to 6, sorry. From 3 to 6. We could also ask ourselves, how many more than 4 did he publish? Well, I can see here more than 4, more greater than not equal to. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So he was published 4 times with photos that were greater than 4. So with 5 and 6 photos, he published in 4 different magazines. And I could ask myself, how many total magazines was he published in? And I could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or I could just count my dots and I have 6 dots. So we're going to get to practice. I'm going to have you pick a statistical question, and I'm going to give you a couple examples that I might ask, but you're going to pick a statistical question to ask different people either around your house. You can call your grandparents, you can call your friends, and you are going to collect data and create a dot plot of your own, and then you're also going to analyze this data and put it into a Flipgrid.